Recording in progress.
Oh, I'm on. Oh, great. So, as I was saying, I said hi. Hey. I recently reevaluated my teaching, and what I mean by that is I asked myself, how well am I discipling and equipping those who I'm teaching? I was a youth pastor for over 25 years, and I had a philosophy that I would approach my teaching in a way that I did it as if it was my last year of youth pastoring, like my last year of doing that. And I approach every year like that. So I never like, oh, we could do that next year. No, let's do it this year. And I did everything as if this is the last, this is it. And it kept me from saving things. It kept me from like, oh, we'll build it up better next year, or it'll be better next time. It's like, no, this is it. We got to make it happen now, because this is and that was the philosophy that I used. It went on for years. It went on for 20 something. I mean, forever. But I always kept that. I imagine like God saying to me, okay, I only wanted you to teach for a certain amount of time. So how faithful were you in what you taught? Because your time's coming to a close in that assignment. And so the question is like God would ask me, what did you produce? And the thing about working on church staffs like this, it's a merry-go-round. You get on there and you're doing events after events, and this Easter and that men's retreat and this thing, and you just get so busy and everything, and all of a sudden you stop and you go, whoa, 10 years have passed. Because it's just taking events. This Sunday to that Sunday, this special Wednesday to that special Sunday, this concert to this banquet, to this tea party, to this camping. I mean, it's just on and on and on, and you get in a merry-go-round. And so I've gone back to that way of thinking in the last few weeks. I don't know if you can tell, but I went back to thinking, okay, so if this was my last year of teaching, wow, then I'm not wasting any time. And so I began to ask myself, what am I producing? What are you gaining? I mean, in this year, because we end up just going to church. How long have you been going there? Well, 10 years now, really. And I noticed that in certain people, when I was on staff, there's people that went there for 10 years at that church or whatever. I never changed. They still didn't know that. They still didn't know that. They still didn't know that. And if you ask them to explain something, they're like, I don't know, pastor. And then they still didn't. They always brought people to church rather than talking to the people. It's kind of like I met somebody and then I brought them to church, which is not a problem. That's not. But it was like they eliminated themselves out of the equation. So they brought them to the professionals. And I thought, that's not how it's designed. There should be people that you are discipling or pouring into or talking to about God that I never meet. Will never, ever meet. And there's people that I talk to about God that you probably will never meet. And that's just the way it goes. So anyway, I went back to that way of thinking a few weeks ago. Now, the only difference is that now I have a greater capacity to teach than I did before. So this is what has fueled the direction in the past few weeks of like going, okay, I'm going all out. And it's like, what can I teach? If I had to prepare somebody and equip them to be able to minister, to be able to, then what am I doing? And that's what this came. So with that said, last week we left off last week with a couple questions. I don't know if you remember. You filled out 3x5 cards.
Yeah.
Remember that? And the questions was, why do you believe in God? And why do you believe Christianity is true? Interesting, but your answers were pretty much all the same. Majority were pretty much all the same. Most of your answers were based on how you became a Christian. And you told me that story, which is very good stories, incident. But I wanted to know why. Why is it that you believe that? Why don't you believe in Allah? Why don't you believe in, can't think of another one, Hinduism? Why don't you believe that? Why do you believe? That's really kind of, so now that you kind of know what I'm asking, now that you kind of know what I was going for, maybe somebody respond. Why do you believe in God rather than something else? Anybody? Bueller?
Bueller?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a line from a movie.
Because he's proven himself true to me in every part of my life. You know, I mean, I was raised on my mother's beliefs, and I came into my own beliefs of him because he started speaking to me when I least expected it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you're talking to somebody on their deathbed, and that person doesn't believe in God. Now they come to you and say, "I don't believe God's real."
I have a friend
Oh,
with that.
oh, yeah. Hold on. I don't believe that God's real. Prove it to me. What do we do? What do you do? What would be your response? I mean, there's no reason to wait till then to think about the answer. Just think about it now.
Well, I've come across conversations like that, and in the last 10 years, and in the last years, I've come to really have a more deeper relationship with God. So when I have had people around me who have said that, and so what I say, well, then why do you enjoy the sun coming out at the same time all the time? When you get sick and you have a fever or you have an infection, your body responds to that by sweating to cool the body down. How does it know to do that? When you're asleep, how do you know to breathe? Like on its own? So I would bring up all these little things that one has no control over just to get them to think. So, so somebody's doing it or somehow it's happening, and that's kind of...
Yeah, that's good. That's interesting because, if the hardest thing for me to think of was how do I explain God without feeling? I mean, without like an experience. Because I could tell him, like you, I could tell him experiences I have with God. But, anybody can do that. They can come and, I believe in the Rafa God, because it saved my family. And I was at rock bottom. See, I can do the same story. So without how I felt or how it impacted me feeling, and without, because I thought, when I was talking to that tarot card white witch, stuff like that. So I'm asking God, what does she need? And he needed a touch. But without that, because, I mean, that is one way. I mean, if I'm talking to somebody on their deathbed in the hospital and they just like, I just want to know. I mean, I don't believe God's real. But I need to know before I die. Can you give me some proof? Now, I can say, Lord, touch him right now. That is one. I mean, but without that, I could obviously say, God heal him, that as well. So, but without that, and he goes, just give me some proof. How would you prove? I mean, is that even possible? Is it possible to prove God to somebody? Or not?
Like as an intellectual?
Yeah, intellectually. Is it? I mean, think about it. Is it not? Is it not possible? Are we just going off of what somebody told us? Are we just going off of how we feel? Because there are people that disregard what other people tell you and disregard your feelings. And if you go to an educational place and, an institution of some sort, they're like, prove it. Prove it. Well, I mean, Elijah proved it, right? But he proved it with the miracle. He challenged all the prophets and said, I'll prove it. He did it in that way. But I'm just saying intellectually.
Well, the Bible says that all of creation points to him, so nobody has an excuse.
So inside,
That would be science.
it would be kind of,
The way the world
there would be
works.
one thing kind of pointing out, you know inside of you. Okay, and that would be one.
Well, no, I was saying all of creation points to him, not inside.
Okay.
The Bible says all of creation is showing God, so nobody has an excuse.
Yeah.
I have a friend who doesn't believe in God and doesn't believe in the Bible. So no matter what I tell her, if I point her to the Bible, she's just, oh, that's nice. You know, and it's
Yeah.
really difficult to talk to her a lot of times. And so I have to like mentally take myself out to kind of connect with her the way she's thinking. But it's really difficult. And I've been praying for her for a long
Yeah.
time because she's older now and she knows that she's getting to the point where she's going to take a dirt nap, and that's all it is. So, like,
I never heard it that way. You know, I was a youth pastor for a long time, as I said, and during that time, I noticed something. I noticed that 80% of active youth abandon church and or God after their youth years. That's 80% might be a low number now, but back then that was it. I used to think this. I used to think that it was because the youth didn't feel comfortable in the adult sanctuary or in the adult. That's what I used to think. But since then, it's changed. And I used to feel that they didn't feel comfortable with adults. They only felt comfortable with peers. They only felt comfortable with other youth. So then when you graduate from the youth group, where do you go? Because you can't go back to youth group. A lot of people become youth workers, right? And I didn't mind that because I loved the help when I was a youth pastor. But I noticed that even in a very flowing church, they just started to drift away from God, away from church. And it was really interesting. And so I used to think that, but the answer goes deeper than that. Studies have now shown that 73% of kids raised in Christian homes abandoned their faith by the age 18. Interesting.
What's the percentage?
73%. 7 out of every 10. 7 out of every 10 that were raised in Christian homes. Well, I'm not talking about going to youth group. I'm talking about were raised in Christian homes, which actually they did go to youth groups. And the reason in these studies, it wasn't rebellion. It wasn't because their high school or college professors brainwashed them. It wasn't because of that. And it wasn't because of peer pressure. Studies have now shown that there is a fundamental flaw in how we teach faith in God. I thought that was interesting. There is a period in a child's life between 8 and 14. It's called a cognitive shift. And a cognitive shift is a period in their life where they stop accepting information just because adults say it. And during this shift in their life, they start asking the question, why? And how do you know? And this period in their life is where they are determining what is true and what is not true. And if children don't develop reasons of their faith, they will eventually find reasons against it. So here's the problem. 99% of children and youth ministries focus on what to believe and not why to believe it. I know, I was in that business. And in Sunday school, Sunday school is derived of pretty much all your curriculum is about 50 Bible stories on repeat. Every year. You got David and Goliath, they're really neat stories, but that's it. That's it. It's on repeat. Year after year after year, it's the same thing. But they never learn why it matters today. That's interesting. Bible teaching will usually consist of Bible memorization, right? I used to do that, and memorizing John 3:16. We all know it, right? Let's say it together. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Yeah. And so, but then if you ask some of these kids, what does eternal life mean? You might get a strong hesitation or even a blank stare. Like, explain it to me. Heaven, no, explain that to me. Meanwhile, these kids are learning at school to critically question everything. So on one hand, you have Sunday school teaching, on one hand, you have schools teaching question everything. And at church, what's being taught is just believe. Well, what is that? Just believe. You got to just believe it. Well, I don't know if it's true. Just believe it. But what about the scriptures that you got to just believe it? How did that happen? Just believe it. And I'm not off because I know that's what I did. Well, I don't get it. You got to just believe. Well, it doesn't make sense. It's about faith. But where's God? You got to just believe him. But what if it's not true? You got to just believe. There's a problem here because schools are saying question everything. Church is saying just believe. So guess what message wins? Question everything. I think it's time to stop teaching just believe. I'm not saying it's not good to do that. I think it's time to start discovering the whys to what people believe. And so where does it start? With the youth? No, it starts with you and me. That's where it starts. Well, who are you going to talk? I don't know. I don't know who God's going to bring across your path. I don't know what relative's going to come to you at a moment. I don't know who you're going to talk to on a deathbed. I don't know. So it doesn't start with, we should get the schools teaching, we should get the church. No. It starts with me, us, right here, our understanding. I asked the question, how do you know Christianity is true? How do you know God is real? What I'm going to do in these next few weeks, I'm going to prove to you that God is real. I'm going to prove it to you. And it's not going to be an experience. I'm not going to be like Elijah calling fire from heaven so you can see that. No. I'm going to intellectually prove to you that God is real. Why? Because you need to know. And you need to explain it to other people that don't like church and don't. So there's different ways. Now, again, I'm only going to use one today. I don't have time to go through all of them because I want to spend time. I want to be able to, so that you and I don't have to just say, just believe. Oh, I feel it. I had an experience and it was real to me. And that's why I want you to know when the question is asked, why do you believe in God? It's more than just a story, a testimony. It's more than just a feeling. But I'm going to help you give an intellectual explanation without a doubt of how God is real. Are you interested?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start with Genesis 1. Donnie? I'm sorry. I didn't. Yeah, did it roll off the
Yeah, it
table?
did.
I think my apple rolled off. Oh, yeah, I'll take that apple. I hope we can get through, but if not, we'll pick it up. So we're going to start with Genesis 1. You have your Bibles, you can turn there. Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters." Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to reread that. I want you to look at it again. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay? So the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered what? And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of what?
Water.
Do you realize that all this earth was all water? It was all water. I didn't pick that up at first. It was just a ball of water and darkness. And that's it. Because it says the earth was formless and empty. So there was nothing in this ball of water. And the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the earth, which was water. How many of you, did anybody realize that before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think that was interesting?
Just going to Grand Canyon.
You,
I'm like, wow, God created all this.
well, here's what's interesting. There's no land. It's not like the water's covering the land. There is no land. That's what's interesting.
How does it contain itself from flowing
The
everywhere?
gravity, yeah. So here's the question. How do we know that God created everything? Because there's an evolution theory, a philosophy. So how do we know that God created everything? Well, first of all, here's one. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. I'm going intellectually now here.
Everything that went.
Everything that exists has a cause. For example, what do students in public school know about the beginning of the universe? What are they being taught? What do they know? How did the universe begin?
Big Bang.
Big Bang, right? Are you familiar with that? The Big Bang. Which is and so that's their cause. It began with a Big Bang. So if the universe began with a Big Bang, what caused the bang? Right? If it says the Big Bang, well, what caused the bang to happen? Everything that starts needs a starter. This is just the law of, you want to talk physics, science, whatever, this is intellectually. Everything that starts needs a starter. For example, a sandcastle on the beach. So I got one right here. There's a sandcastle on the beach. It didn't randomly happen. The water didn't come and wash up, and then when the water goes back, there was a sandcastle. It had to start somewhere. Someone had to do it. These are just the laws of science, if you want to go. And in fact, I looked at the sandcastle. Look how intricate it is. And then I found a more intricate one like this. That's more layered. Look at that detail. There's no way that the water came up and then went down and this is what was left. But this is what's being taught. This is what people are realizing, that all of a sudden it was a big bang and everything came out. Ooh. All of a sudden the water washed up and then it came out as a sandcastle with detail. God not only started, because if you're going to start something, it has to be something from without it. If you're going to make something, if I'm going to create this computer, It's going to be, I'm outside of the computer and I'm making it. So in order for something to start, it's got to be something from outside of it. So who has the only ability to be outside of the universe? Let's just say God. So if that's the case, let's look into that, because if he was the cause of a Big Bang, I'm not saying a Big Bang happened, because I don't think so, but let's just say for their sake, this Big Bang, something caused that Big Bang then. And it has to be something from outside of it. What's outside? God. Yeah, but how do you know? Well, let's just look at it, because this sandcastle is very intricate. In other words, this sandcastle was designed by somebody. So we're looking at a designer. So God designed, and they can say, if an evolutionist can say, oh no, it just happened. Really? Because that takes more faith than to say it was designed. And so let's talk about the designer. Let's look at how he designed this. And to show us how intricate this is. Genesis 1:2 says, the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. You have 4 conditions here. 1, it's dark everywhere on the surface. 2, there's water everywhere. 3, the planet is unfit for life. And 4, it's empty of life. There is no life. So 1, from that scripture, from what we've read so far, we're only at verse 2. Darkness is everywhere. Water is on the surface of the earth. The planet is unfit for life, and it's empty of life. Does anybody need to repeat that? Or get that? Okay.
Is that going on day 1?
You could actually, it's outside of day 1, but you could just put it. You could. It doesn't matter. This is your notes, so
I know, but I just make sure.
that's fine. I usually do a little circle and go outside. Okay, but it does apply to it. It does apply. I'll tell you when I start day 1.
Oh, I've been making notes.
That's okay. That's fine. You got the back too. You have the back too. But I'm just setting up, because we haven't got to day 1 yet. Okay, I'm just setting up. So far, we have 4 conditions of the earth. It's dark everywhere. There's water everywhere. The planet is unfit for life, and there's empty of life. Okay, are we good? So scientists say that Genesis is just a bunch of nonsense. This is what scientists say. Okay, this is what the scientific intellectual world say, that Genesis is just nonsense. But Galileo said this: the biggest mistake that you can make in Bible interpretation is to get the wrong point of view. Does anybody want that quote, or are you fine? Okay.
Say it again.
The biggest mistake that you can make in Bible interpretation is to get the wrong point of view. And you could also get the recording here. So when they say scientific nonsense, they think that God, first of all, their point of view, they're thinking that God is up above the earth, looking down on the earth and telling us what he did. This is the point of view of the scientific world. They have the wrong point of view. Instead, picture God on the surface of the earth, looking up at the clouds and telling what he did. So don't picture it as God doing this. Picture God actually on the surface of the earth, and he's going to describe it. This is what we're going to read. He's going to describe what he's seeing looking up. Okay? Have you ever looked at it that way? Well, this is another point of view. And as Galileo said, what did he say? The biggest mistake that you can make in Bible interpretation is to get the wrong point of view. So let's move God from here, and let's put him on the surface during this happening. Okay? Genesis 1, That view, I'll just say this, that view is going to make a big difference in the interpretation of the 6 days of creation. And that's what we're going to walk through. We're going to begin to walk through it. So Genesis 1, we're not at day 1 yet. Okay, Genesis 1:1 says this. I'm just going to, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. In the beginning, it was just water. Here's day 1. Now, I don't have specific things that you are to write down. So whatever stands out to you, whatever you think is interesting, you can put that as we go through day 1.
So now we're on day 1.
Now we're. I just gave you. It's just a space that you can just put notes or jot down things that you think are interesting. There's different ways of taking notes. Some people write down everything. That's exhausting. And every time I did that, I never went back to it. Too much. I began to just write down the things that went, ooh, that's good. And I did that. Even if it's a great quote, if it doesn't mean anything to you, leave it alone. But if it, unless you can. You can take notes however you do it, but I'm just saying for me, I only do highlights. So this is, so now Genesis, okay?
Sorry, I just do it groups. It's just allergies probably.
I can tell allergy sneezing for me, it's in threes. I sneeze 3 times. Why is that? Anybody do that?
Yes.
That's another teaching. It's another design. Okay. All right. So let's move to ready? Verse 3. We're moving. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. And evening. Hey, you awake?
Yes.
And evening passed and morning came, marking the first day. Now, I'm going to make references to creation throughout the next weeks. So I can't give you all the information. I'm just going to give you some little bits, and then I'm going to refer back to it in the next few weeks. Okay? Because it's impossible to give you. I want to keep you on track. Okay? So here we are, Genesis 1, 3 through 5. We just read it. So this is what's happening. This is when, at this point in this verse, what's going on the surface of the earth, the atmosphere goes from opaque to translucent. That's what this is talking about. It's going, opaque means you can't see through it. So what's going on is you have darkness and it's opaque. But then it says, let there be light. In order for light to shine through, who's the light?
Jesus.
Yeah, God's a light. In order for light to shine through, the atmosphere has to become translucent. And that's what's going on right now. It's becoming translucent. The way you make things translucent in the atmosphere is you add oxygen. So right now, oxygen is being added to this opaque atmosphere to make it translucent so that the light can shine. Does that make sense? Are you following me? Okay. In other words, Earth began with an atmosphere 200 times thicker than it is today. An atmosphere that thick that you couldn't see anything through it, let alone light. So what God is doing in this creation is he's making the atmosphere translucent by adding oxygen. Now things are visible. Now the sun and stars existed, but there was no light. I mean, things existed on the water, but there's no light on the surface of the waters of the earth. And so what's happening is that God is thinning out the atmosphere enough so that the light could come through. Then it says in that verse, in that passage, the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Why? Why would you say that? Why the Spirit of God? Because the Spirit of God is the picture of life. This implies that the origin of life, day one, was the beginning of life. Day one, because it says here, and God was hovering over the surface of the waters, he brought life to the surface. Does that make sense? Okay, this is just like one factor on this day, but I'm going to try to just do one factor in the day. So this moves us to creation day 2. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 through 8. And then God said, let there be a space between the waters to separate the waters of the heavens from the waters of the earth. God's on the surface, the heavens, earth. Verse 7, and that is what happened. God made this space to separate the waters on the earth from the waters of the heavens. God called the space sky. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the second day. So when we have water above and water below, this is what's going on. Now he's bringing water above, water below. What holds water? What's above that holds water? Clouds. Interesting. In the book of Job, we won't have time to go there, and I'll give you, there is about 1.5 chapters about day 2 that we get, not in Genesis, but we get it in Job. It explains that it's Job 37 and 38, those 2 chapters. We won't go there because there's a lot of information. But in Job 37 and 38, it explains, this is God talking to Job. Like, where were you when I did this? And then he starts to explain what he did in creation. That's interesting. So we get that picture. It explains, what it explains is, it explains that God cycles the waters above from the waters below. This is an interesting concept. So he cycles it. So the water on the earth evaporates, goes up, comes down. There's a flow going. And what it does, it describes 6 distinct forms of precipitation. I'll give you these 6. They're real short little words. Ready? These are, in Job, it talks about 6 distinct forms of precipitation. One is dew, mist, rain, snow, frost, and hail. These are 6 distinct forms of precipitation. This is the only way you can have billions of people living on the surface of the earth, is because of this. This is the cycle. Because the earth's water cycle is designed to ensure that no matter where you are, there are both frozen forms of precipitation and liquid forms. If we can have rivers and streams, we can have an abundance of food everywhere. What a design. You need all 6 of precipitations to make that possible. So this.
What were the last 2? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So it's dew, mist, rain, snow, frost, hail. And because you have these forms of precipitation, you can have food. God is preparing this. This is not just like, poof, okay, you're there. Okay, boom, here, there's an apple. All right, Bob doesn't have an apple, but you can have an apple. You know, that kind of thing. So let's move to day 3. Creation day 3. Chapter 1, verse 9. Oh, what are we on day 3? There we go. 9 to 13. Then God said, let the waters beneath the sky flow together into one place, so dry ground may appear. And that is what happened. Wow, so this is the landmass is finally getting in the picture here. God called the dry ground land and the waters seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant, and trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. These seeds will then produce the kinds of plants and trees from which they came, and that is what happened. Verse 12. The land produced vegetation, all sorts of seed-bearing plants and trees with seed-bearing fruit. Their seeds produced plants and trees of the same kind, and God saw that it was good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the third day. This is where landmass shows up for the first time on day 3. When God transformed the waters into continents and oceans. And this brings up plate tectonics. If you want to write plate, plate. Tectonics are Tectonics. Plate tectonics. We're talking about land. It's just now. Here's the interesting. It's just now that scientists have finally realized, and there's proof now, that continents didn't always exist. They're a little late to the game here. And we knew that already. Today we know that it takes deep oxygen cycle events to accelerate the growth of the continental land masses. And I want you to keep that, because there's going to be certain oxygen cycles are going to happen in this creation, right? So we had one oxygen, right, added to the atmosphere, which made it translucent, see-through. Took the thick, opaque atmosphere, adding oxygen, so there's an oxygen cycle event that happens. Bless you. Are you related? Well, I'm gonna start. What are we on?
Day 3?
How many mothers do we have here? How many we got? Raise your hand, mothers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. That's just it.
I don't get to pass those out now.
Happy Mother's Day.
No, you don't.
Happy Mother's Day.
Just kidding.
Happy Mother's Day.
You can get one.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone. All right, that covers everything. What?
There's a whole event happening over here.
Is that a tulip? Those are tulips, right?
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Isn't that a pretty color? Kind of like lavender. I got a cat seat.
I got it. I got nothing.
Yeah, I got a rock.
I got a rock.
Yeah, right.
What day are we on?
I got
3.
Woo! Okay, we're probably not going to get through.
It's 10 till.
Okay, so plate tectonics. This is where scientists realize, as I mentioned, they just finally realized that continents didn't always exist. Scientists have discovered in 2018. Okay, science said that. You got to realize, science throws around billions like it's nothing. You'll notice that as science begins to find more evidence, that those billions begin to be fit closer to the Bible, to more of the Bible timetable. So in 2018, science said that the first billion years, that there was nothing but water. What a discovery. And then the plate tectonics kicked in. But the first great oxygenation happened about 2.5 billion years ago, they say, where about 90% of landmass formed. So they're just coming late to the party here. Some people aren't believing until science says so. Because they go, oh, this is the Bible. But science says this. Oh, they have? See, that's how they think like that. Okay, so science is coming. They're coming to the party. They're late. The more we learn about the past history of the earth, the tighter and tighter fit about what the Bible taught about these land masses becoming just thousands of years ago. Then the scripture talks about vegetation on these land masses. In trying to refute the Bible, science has said that the fossil record, that's the fossil record shows us that we had animals before we had vegetation on the continents. This is what science had said, that we had animals before the vegetation. That's not true in the creation year. It's not true in Genesis, but science has said that. It's easy to come up with that because animals have skeletons and shells, and that's going to be easy to preserve, but that's not the case of vegetation. So that's why they came up with that. I mean, instead of throwing around a billion years, they just kind of go, oh, animals came before vegetation. How do you know? Well, because the fossil record shows the skeletons of it, but we have no fossils of vegetation. And then in 2009 and in 2011, 2 scientific papers were published saying, we now have the evidence that vegetation had been on the land masses 600 million years before animals now. 600 million years. I mean, you don't just say they came first. Let's throw in 600 million years. At least we're going from billions to millions now, right? And so as we learn more, remember, it gets tighter and tighter fit in the timetable of the Bible. If you think about it for a second, just logically. What would the animals have eaten?
That's what I was thinking. When
Right?
You said that.
And then that's the question that was brought up to science, but this was science answer. Well, they found food from the waters, from the ocean. Yeah. But the Bible refers to vegetation on land masses. And science says we have no fossil evidence on that. And then they say, oh, but now we do. Okay, being patient. Let's see if I can get one more. I'll get one more day in. Creation, day 4. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 to 19. Then God said, let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years. Let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth. And that is what happened. Verse 16. God made two great lights, the larger one to govern the day, and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set these lights in the sky to light the earth, to govern the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the fourth day. So on creation day 4, we have creatures on the surface of the earth for the first time. And now they can see the sun, moon, and stars. And the second great oxidation event turned the Earth's atmosphere from a dense haze to a translucent. Oxygen determines how transparent the atmosphere is. We've done an experiment since then. Science has done experiments where they took the atmosphere of the Earth and then they started at 1% and they began to push oxygen into it to see it become more translucent and more, even than it is now. On the second great oxidation event, the oxygen level suddenly goes from 2% to 8% for the first time in history. That's enough to make the atmosphere transparent. That's exactly the same time that the animals appeared. Animals can't function if they don't know where the sun, moon, and stars are in the sky. They need that. They need a transparent sky to see them. As for science, you now see in the fossil records that the very moment, because they have fossil records, the very moment the oxygen level hit that minimum level for animals to live, all of a sudden animals suddenly appear. So you go from microbial life to animals as big as 2 years across. Day 5. Maybe I can get through it. Day 5. Genesis chapter 1, verse 20. Then God said, "Let the waters swarm with fish and other life. Let the skies be filled with birds of every kind." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, and every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply. Let the fish fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on earth." And evening passed, and morning came, marking the 5th day. So here you have God creating the sea mammals and the birds. This is interesting. This is only the second time God uses the word create. The word create in Hebrew means baros, which means something brand new at God's hand. And this is only the second time he used it. From the beginning, God created, and then this is, and so he didn't use it on the others, but this is where he used it. And what was here's why it was brand new. Here's what was brand new. What was brand new was animals. That they were not just physical, but soulish, in that they have a mind, will, and emotions, and a capacity to form relationships with one another and with offspring. This is as a creation. They are also formed with the capacity, animals here are now formed to have the capacity to have a relationship with a higher species, with human beings, to serve and please them. This is interesting. Day 6. Genesis chapter 1, verse 24 and 25. Then God said, "Let the earth produce every sort of animal, each producing offspring of the same kind, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and wild animals." And that is what happened. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to produce offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. So here, it doesn't talk about the first land animals. It talks about the 3 categories of land animals that are essential for launching human civilization. In Job 38 and 39, it goes into that detail. So you could read it on your own. You'll be reading about creation as God is telling Job, because it's concerning that. So now you have short-legged land animals, you have rodents, But rodents were needed to provide for clothing for humans. That's what they used, the rodents. Because the humans are not Neanderthals, and we are not adaptive to a cold climate. We're fine in a warm climate, but not in a cold climate. So the rodents enabled us to go into the cold climate zones. And then two different kinds of long-legged land animals appeared. Were created. Those who are easy to tame, like herbivores, who were used for agriculture, and those who were difficult to tame, the carnivores, and they were more used for household companions. And then last of all, God created human beings. Verse 26, 27, then God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. I'm going to give you a lot more information on this, but I'm just going to tap with a couple. This is only the third time that God used the word create. Only the third time. And the reason he used it is because something is brand new at the hand of God. What's brand new with us is that we're not just physical and we're not just soul-ish, but we're spiritual. As the birds and animals were designed to relate to a higher species, we're designed to relate to a higher being, the one that created everything. So I'm going to stop there, but I want to explain to you next week where dinosaurs fit. Now, the reason why I'm cutting short today is because it's Mother's Day and we're heading out of town. And I didn't know if I could get through the 6 days. So what I want you to do is I want you to read through that and come up with questions. Come up with what about this? What about that? I know one of the questions I had was dinosaurs. So I want to show you where that they would fit. Where they would actually fit. And why they don't fit now.
What was the scripture for Job?
The last one was Job 38 and 39. Read the Job thing. It's really interesting because it's 38 and 39. Chapter 38 and chapter 39. And it's God. God is talking about creation. So it's an elaboration from Genesis.
I thought you said 37 and 38.
That's the other. So read 37, 38, and 39. This is where God is kind of commentary, giving a little more into what he did in creation. So, does that make sense? And come up with questions too. When you look at it, go, yeah, but what about, that's what we want to figure out. Because your questions are probably going to be the questions that people are going to ask you. Yeah, but what about? And let's form the answers to it. So what I did here, I began by showing you, look how of incredible design this, whisper, put air in your voice. It's just, I know. So I'm just starting with giving you, and we'll go more into, because I'm reading these scriptures, I'm going, oh, there's so much more, but I can only point on one thing. And it'll be interesting to see that, okay? So, so you don't have to leave, okay? But we'll slip out because we're meeting somebody for, I can't tell what it is, Mother's Day thing. Okay. Anyway, so we're doing that, and we have a reservation, so that's why we kind of have to do that. But all I have to say this, last one out, close the door and close the gate. That's it.
Close both gates.
Both gates. So the metal gate here to the patio, close that gate. So whoever the last one is, you can stay here all day. Yeah, just close the gates. Well, obviously this door too. And that's good. I'm good. Yeah. All right. If you have any questions, bring them next week, because we're going to continue on that. And I will give more proof. And we're not only going to prove creation. I'm going to prove the resurrection. I'm going to prove everything. with outside, and I'm going to give you. Oh my goodness, I'm going to give you information outside of the Bible to prove the Bible. And that kind of stuff is what we need. All right.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yes.